Deepwoken. Deepwoken is a build creation game where you fight monsters and players to level up, and on every level increase you get a set of random cards based off the stats you invested into. But Deepwoken, being a build creation game, is very flawed in that area, and I'm going to explain why. So first I have to start with the baseline. We all know about deep shrines, right? And we're going to be talking about deep shrines a lot in this video. They are used to manipulate your build and change it throughout your progression to make it perfectly how you want it. But wait, let's go back to what I said at the beginning of the video. Deepwoken is a build creation game where you fight monsters and players to level up, and on every level increase you get a set of random cards based off the stats you invested into. So what's the point of random cards if in the end everything's perfect? Let's talk about that. Shrines are used to edit your build to get something you want or to remove something you don't want, in all shapes and form. But to me, in other words, shrines are basically in-game patches for bad systems the developers have placed into the game. The random card draw, right? The thing that they put in the game. There are 5 shrines that are basically a combat to that system, screwing you over. Shrine of Chance, Shrine of Temptation, Shrine of Ostentation, Shrine of Division, and Shrine of Unification. And they've continually added more of these shrines the longer the game's been out. So why have random card draws and then add 5 shrines to make it so it's not random? The only other reason you'd use these shrines besides making your build perfect is to obtain any new talents or mantras that they added into the game in the latest update, or just to make a minor change to your build after it's done. But isn't this a permadeath roguelite game? So it would be fine to just wait until you wipe to make those changes, right? Gives you something to look forward to when you make a new build too. The entire point of a roguelite/like game is to make the player excited to start again with their new knowledge. At least that's the point of a good one. But Deepwoken's progression is so obnoxious and boring that they had to add shrines so people don't have to play it again. And don't get me wrong on this, there are many roguelike games where you are able to combat the randomness, but none, and I mean none, of them let you ever get exactly what you want. And maybe Deepwoken just wanted to go the route of just a build experimentation game. But if that's the case, then why make it so unnecessarily complicated? It's even more complicated than you probably even realize. So we're going to go through all the different manipulations of your build throughout your progression, and you're going to realize how many there are and how silly it is. So starting off, Mystic. Mystic is an NPC that lets you change what talents you get in your next random draw. Oh, but except for rare cards. You can't get rare cards from Mystic because that would be too OP. But on top of Mystic, just in case you still don't get what you wanted from their random card draw that they added into the game, there is Shrine of Chance and Shrine of Temptation. Shrine of Chance lets you trade any card you want for a different card, and this can also be used with Mystic. And good news, even though Mystic won't let you get the rare cards you want, with Shrine of Chance you can trade rares for other rares until you get the one you want. And Shrine of Temptation is the same thing but for Mantra card, which is also able to be comboed with Mystic. And we can't forget about one of the newer shrines, the Shrine of Ostentation, that lets you change a common talent into a rare talent or advanced talent. So why doesn't Mystic just let you pick rares then? I thought they were avoiding that for some reason. That's a lot of systems to be able to combat a system they added into the game, but that's not all. There's also something called aces. You will get a good amount of these during your progression, and these are also to combat the randomness they added. Aces allowed you to freeze one card in a random draw so it will guarantee popping up in your next draw, and also allow you to burn a card in a random draw so it won't show up again, further letting you customize what you will get. This also can be comboed with Mystic. And again, there's a shrine just in case you accidentally burn a card you didn't want to burn. Isn't this starting to sound sort of ridiculous now that I repeat it back to you? A good game creates problems for the player that are enjoyable to fix. But all the systems they have in place to combat the random cards system that they added into the game are really annoying to deal with. So let's step back a bit and let's go to a different shrine. When you make a new character, you get a total of 330 investment points to put into whatever you want. But there's this shrine called Shrine of Order, which basically just is more investment points in a really complicated way. Shrine of Order lets you invest high into a certain stat and then bring it back down, so you can use those points to go into a different stat. This will always end up just meaning you had more stat points to invest. Your build basically will always be inferior if you do not use Shrine of Order. And I could talk talk about how big of a problem that is for new player onboarding, but I'm sure it's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't have knowledge of the off-game community-made builder site, it's almost impossible to use Shrine of Order properly. But even with the builder site, it's just too much for a lot of people. I actually did a community post a few days ago to ask if people see a reason to not use Shrine of Order when making a Deepwoken build. And 85% of people said no, it's simply just more stat points. And then 15% said, yeah, there is a reason to not use it. But when I went down to read the comments, I saw something a little bit funny. It's 10 times more fun to prog a build with no Shrine, in my opinion. I don't know how to use Shrine, so I just don't. I hate how Shrine has complicated making a build to the point non-Shrine builds are just... I just don't find min-maxing fun, so I typically don't use the Shrine. It's just too good to pass up unless you don't really care about having a viable build. Shrine of Order makes prog so boring, I hate it. Okay, so you see a trend here. Your build will always be inferior if you do not use Shrine of Order. For the majority, there's very few builds that you might be able to whip up that don't need Shrine of Order and still are really good. But even the devs decided to nerf this Shrine because it was too OP. They made it so a lot of high talents like Reinforced Armor or Collapsed Lung or others like that will be less effective if you have less than the required stat points to obtain that talent. So they're just bringing down the viability of this Shrine instead of 1, removing it, 2, just adding more stat points for everyone so that it's not this complicated way where experienced players or min-max players always will be having an advantage. Moving on. There are a few things I didn't mention. Shrines are expensive to use. We all know this. It takes 5 knowledge points to use most shrines, Shrine of Order being 10 knowledge, and I think a couple other ones are 10. All of this just is a roadblock that makes you feel bad. There's nothing good about shrines in the game. Shrines don't ever make you feel good. They're artificial excitement because they throw the system in the game of random cards that makes it really annoying to make a build that you want. And then they're like, okay, well, since that system is annoying, let's add another annoying system so you can get exactly what you want. So the existence of knowledge is basically just a roadblock of annoyance to you actually making what you want in a game that allows you to make exactly what you want. In my own experience, when I go to make a build, I usually use the builder site. And I've seen that a huge percentage of the player base does the same thing. And why? Because if you don't, your build will suck. Your build will not be as good as everyone else who did use the builder site, because they planned it out beforehand. So if you're picking your stats beforehand, you'll always have talents planned out for your build before you make it. And let's say you got to your Shrine of Order power level, power 8, or whatever you'd be shrining at, and you didn't have all the talents you wanted to get before Shrine. So what do? Your build is messed up. You either have to get knowledge somehow or wipe and retry. All that the knowledge requirement does is make you feel bad and get in the way. There really isn't a way to get around it unless you just want to settle with your build being inferior to everyone else's. So like, let me give you an example of how your progression would go for you to need to use Shrine. You go into the game, let's say you have your build planned out and you're not going Shrine of Order. You're going to use Mystic during your progression. You're telling Mystic what cards you want, and if that wasn't enough, you also have the aces. You're like, oh, I don't want this talent, I'm gonna burn this one. Oh, I do need that one, I'm gonna freeze this one. So you're already using 2 different things to combat the random draw system. And if both those fail you, which that's a lot of help. Mystic is basically a guarantee of what you want. You got 5 deep shrines. 5 deep shrines to help you out. Just in case Mystic and aces was not enough, mixed with the increased chance of you getting what you want based on your stats, there are 5 shrines. And so shrines are almost just a backup at that point. Like, okay, well, I didn't get what I needed from all the other help, so thank goodness there's a shrine backup that costs knowledge. And so now you just have to grind, basically. But there's good news. Even the developers realized how bad the system was of making it so you need knowledge and it's annoying to get. But instead of fixing the core problem, either making the knowledge less or making it not cost knowledge, they made a mini dungeon called Diluvian Mechanism that has really high drop rates for this item called Moon's Eye Tome, which gives you 100 knowledge, which is way more than you would need to perfect your build. And you might be saying to me, well, Diluvian Mechanism is late game and that thing's hard. If you think that, then you're just not knowledgeable in how things work, because Diluvian Mechanism is not hard. You only need to get to wave 25 to have a pretty good chance of getting a Moon's Eye Tome. The only thing you need for Diluvian Mechanism is a build that you looked up. Even if you're a brand new player player, or, you know, you've played for a couple months, you probably wouldn't need a Moon's Eye Tome if you're a brand new player because you probably don't understand how the build creation worked. But even if you're somewhat new to the game, and I'm speaking from experience, I had friends that did this, that were new to the game, and they got to wave 25 just because they had a really good build. I don't think they even looked up a video for it. They just had a good build. You can get to wave 25. You can do it. And that's all you need to do to combat their knowledge system, which they placed into the game already. So are you seeing the pattern here? We go from your random card draw system, which is combated by Mystic, Aces, and also just investing your stats in a certain order. And then you have 5 shrines just in case that messes up. But oh, what if the shrines are annoying because it costs knowledge? They had another system, Moon's Eye Tome, which gives you 100 knowledge, which I don't think always existed, but it used to be super rare, so it was never something you could get. But then with the addition of Diluvian Mechanism making it very easy to get these, they've also combated their knowledge system, which they also added into the game. So what's the point of any of it if you just keep adding a patch for the thing you added into the game? And the builder site in itself is proof of flaw. Listen to this. There is a off-game, community-made site, so you can pre-select all the talents you want, all the stats you want, all the mantras you want, your oath, attunement, bell, and etc. And even the developers have endorsed this site and made it able to import into the game itself. But everything's random in this game. How can this be? That's what I'm saying. Why does all of this exist when in the end you just pick whatever you want? All they've done is make it really complicated and hard for new players and really obnoxious for experienced players. With how they've built the game to this point, when you get a power-up, there should just be a long list of all the talents, and you can pick whatever ones are available to you if you have the stat requirement. And here's one last little thing that bugs me. Every single talent requirement is based off increments of 5. It's always a 5-10 number, 5 or 10 jump number. It's 15, 20, 25, 30. So you'll never have a talent that's like 23 or 27 or 28 or 42. They all go by 5. And the individual stat points, like 1 fortitude or 1 agility, do so little for scaling or do so little to help you out. Like for instance, fortitude is half a health. So let's say you end your build at 90 fortitude because you did reinforced armor or something, but then you had 4 extra points. You put in 4 extra fortitude points. You get 2 health. 2 health is going to do nothing. And each weapons point does barely anything either for scaling. They should make your investment points only go in increments of 5, because having stat points in uneven numbers just for the most part is a nuisance. Like how many times have you accidentally gone 41 agility or something and you're like, oh dang, my build's ruined because I'm not able to get that other talent that I needed that 1 point for, because now it's going to be 49 of this and 41 of this because I couldn't get 50 of that. And the only reason to keep not doing increments of 5 in the game is the existence of Shrine of Order, which I think should just be changed into you have more stat points and then make it so stat points go in increments of 5, so it'll always be even. And it's funny because they even added another shrine just to band-aid the fact that you can mess your build up by accidentally going too high in a stat by 1. At this point, you should just be able to pick where you want your stats to cap at, and leveling up just automatically invests in the most efficient way. Any other way just leaves room for mistakes like this, which requires another shrine to fix. So yeah, that's my little frustration. I have a lot of other ones too, but this one has bothered me a lot because I really don't make new builds these days because it's just so obnoxious. You know, I gotta plan out the whole thing beforehand, and I gotta do all these things, and I gotta blah blah blah, and like the whole end game content is just PvP. So if you're not min-maxing, you're gonna be at a disadvantage to the people who do min-max. It kind of forces you into min-maxing. And you know, like even beyond picking the right talents you want, there's min-maxing to get the perfect equipment you want, which is also a really annoying system. Just make it so we're not able to get exactly what we want. That's how the game should have been. Now it's too late, but that's how the game should have been. And it's kind of funny because at the beginning of this game, it was random. It was just random cards. There was no manipulation to make something exactly how you wanted. And that was kind of the fun and the charm of it, because you do a really difficult progression and it would always be different every time. And you'd always be like, oh, what? This mantra showed up. Oh, what? I got that talent? Like, remember getting, if you're an OG, remember getting like the adept talent? And you're like, oh my gosh, my progression's gonna be faster this time. That was awesome. And there wasn't really like a specific way you got that one. You just kind of got it, and that was cool. I missed the excitement of things. And this is an entirely different video, and I'm gonna stop before I go on another tangent. But min-maxing it's not just maxing, it's min-maxing, which means you're doing these little tiny baby adjustments to make your build exactly how you want. And there's so much min-maxing in this game that nothing's exciting. Nothing is like oh my gosh, I got this. Oh my gosh, this showed up in my random draws. Oh my gosh, I got blah blah blah. There's really nothing that you're gonna be like super excited about, because they've made everything super easy and just like really small. Everything's just really small, you know? You get one investment point. You get all these little tiny little adjustments, but nothing's really big. There's no big like jump you do during your progression that you're like, oh my gosh, I got the blah blah blah. Even getting your bell is not really exciting, to be honest. And you even min-max your bell in a way. You're like, oh, I got my bell, but it wasn't what I wanted, so now I'm gonna change it with the other shrine. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know, it's just kind of funny. It'd be cool if you could do like a progression and you get your bell at least, and that's your random thing. They probably can't do that at this point because they've added so many bells that are just like so bad, which is probably the reason they added trash bells, is because they are able to without really frustrating anyone, because you can change anything you want. But anyways, that's my little thing. Let me know what you think in the comments. I did kind of go off a little bit at the end there, but remember what I talked about: shrines, aces, mystic, so many different little things to make your build perfect in a game that has random draws. Pretty silly, but yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.